Welcome to the Business Blast podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wagner. This episode is brought to you by Authors Unite. Authors Unite makes the process of becoming a published best-selling author as simple as sipping your morning cup of coffee. You can learn more about Authors Unite at authorsunite.com. Now, let's jump into the episode. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Business Blast podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wagner, and I want to welcome you to the first ever millennial-produced podcast featuring episodes all under 7 minutes. That's who I'm interviewing today. Every week, Jordan Rigi extracts his secrets on how to enhance the performance in your career. Through personal experience and stories, he creates a simple and seamless process to reach your goals and find your true purpose. So welcome to the show, man.
Thanks a lot.
Of course, man. Pumped to have you here. We both actually have similar formats for a show, so that's pretty cool. And we'll jump right in, man. The first one I have for you is, what is the best story from your life that has an underlying valuable message?
Yeah, so I'd say for myself is not so much a specific story, but I'd say something that I've learned throughout my life at a relatively young age. I think a lot of people go through this when you're ending your high school career. There's a lot of pressure for figuring out what you need to do with your life and having it all figured out. And I think that's a trend throughout a lot of younger people's lives. And I figured out, kind of the hard way, but you really don't need to have it all figured out right away. I think taking a step back to breathe a little bit. For myself, now I'm about 25 years old, and I'd say that I've gotten finally to that path to success, and it took a lot of trial and error. But I think one of the most valuable things for myself that I've learned is you're not going to have it all figured out right away. It's going to take, different jobs that you're trying, different career paths that, really trial and error and learning from your mistakes. And if you do make mistakes, that's totally fine as long as you're learning from them. But you don't have to have it all figured out within, the first couple months out of high school. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to figure out what your career and your meaning for life is.
And what is the most valuable piece of information we should know that's within your expertise or industry?
I'd say that it's pretty simple advice. I'd say be yourself. So people that I've seen and I've worked with, people do business with people they like and enjoy talking to. So selling yourself, and obviously the rest will follow. So don't be fake. Don't try to be somebody else. Too many times I've seen that throughout the different jobs and, salespeople that I've trained, that they try to become somebody else and the results aren't as good. So be yourself, be true to who you are, and that'll show, and people will, fall in love with that. And that's ultimately, I think, one of the most valuable pieces I can, give to people out there.
And it could tie in, but what's your best piece of overall business advice, so not necessarily industry specific?
Yeah, this is actually one of the core principles based off of our company, and it's always do the right thing. It's our core principle at our job, and I think it comes back threefold. So when you're focusing on always doing the right thing, and I've seen this happening so many times where I've called companies, and, had an issue, and it's always about squeezing every penny out of their customers. If you're focusing on doing the right thing, people will bring referrals. People will want to come back and do business with you and bring their friends, family and other people. So I think always do the right thing is business advice I'd offer to anybody in any industry.
And if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Think before you act. So digest your thoughts before you make decisions. Obviously, risk is something that's good to do, but calculated risk. So if there's anything that I could do, not just in business, but in my personal life, it would be thinking before I act and making sure I realize the repercussion of my decisions.
And in your opinion, what is the key to happiness?
I'd say that that's a little bit tough, but I'd have to go with key to happiness for myself is helping others first, showing people that you care about them. And once you start to put others before yourself, you become very selfless. And like I said, it all comes back to benefit you even more. So I'd say help others first.
And what is the best book that you've read, and what was the number one thing you learned from that?
The number one book that I've read, and this is going to be a difficult choice, but I'd go with Mindset by Carol Dweck. Actually, when I started at the job that I'm doing now, my boss sent me that book, and it goes over fixed mindset and growth mindset, and how having a growth mindset, you basically take yourself out of this bubble where it's everybody else's fault, and it's this constant opportunity to learn and to grow. So the number one thing I learned from that is we all have unlimited potential in this life, and it's once we open our eyes to realize that we do have that unlimited potential, that's when we have true and real growth. So not being fixed and thinking that I only have certain potential because these are my qualities and good characteristics.
And what is your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote, hands down, is Usque ad finum, which is Latin, and English translation is until the end. I think that in life, in our jobs, in our personal lives, with our family relationships, everything we do should have be done with a purpose and with an end in mind. And too many times, I think people are making decisions that are maybe just for the moment and not really thinking how is this going to affect me years down the road or affect that ultimate goal. So my favorite quote is everything I do has an end purpose, and if I make a decision that isn't for the end and with that end in mind, I'm doing something wrong. So that's my favorite quote.
That is awesome, man. Dude, thank you so much for coming on. It's always fun to meet another podcaster. The last one I have for you before we let you go is, where's the best place for people to find you online?
Yeah, if you want to find me online, the best place is LinkedIn. Open to anybody connecting and following, and then obviously I have a Facebook page with my podcast, which is Windshield Time Podcast. So feel free to hop on there, share your stories, and hopefully follow me on my journey.
Perfect, man. Thanks again for jumping on.
Thanks so much, Tyler.
The podcast you just heard was published with Anchor. Got something you want to say to the creator of this show? Send them a voice message using the Anchor app, free for iOS and Android.